You know, we all face challenges in our lives, and I think we all know our ups and downs, especially if you're involved in agriculture. And we've had an up and down year in our organization, but there's a lot of steadfast and constants that we can lean on, and good leadership is one of those. And I would submit to you this morning that we have got a very strong and steadfast leader guiding this organization. I could go on for a long time about his attributes. I've got to know him personally through the years, and I know you have too, so I won't take a lot of time to list them all, but I hope you agree with me that we've got a good, strong president, and it's my privilege and honor to introduce to you Mr. Jeff Aiken.
Thank you, Eric. It's truly an honor and a privilege to work with you and our board of directors representing this organization and agriculture across the great state of Tennessee. To our delegate body, I've got to say, reporting to you the leadership of Tennessee Farm Bureau is always one of the highlights of the year for me, but I've got to admit, just like everything else in 2020, putting comments together today has been a little more challenging than normal. I always strive to be positive. I think positivity serves us well. But sharing a positive message in a time when we're gathered here that some have just went through Thanksgiving minus a loved one at the Thanksgiving table, or some that are gathered here that have family members and friends at home that are struggling with COVID. Positivity can be a little challenging and perhaps not resonate quite as well. Admittedly, we all know we're dealing with a frightening and stressful pandemic, never experienced before in any of our lifetimes. There's no history, no playbook as to how we should approach normal, everyday activities as individuals, much less as an organization. I do find it somewhat ironic that the closest comparison that most offer to what we're dealing with now is the Spanish flu in 1918. You know, if you think about that, that was just 3 years before the Tennessee Farm Bureau was organized. I can't help but think that our forefathers, the ones that worked to build this organization, create the foundation, were doing that perhaps during that pandemic. I'd like to start by sharing a story with you that supposedly occurred hundreds of years ago in a tiny village in Italy. And the story goes that the businessman had accumulated a lot of debt, and his banker was calling in the debt and created a real difficult situation for this businessman. But fortunately for him, he had a beautiful daughter that the banker had the sweets on and wanted to marry, so the banker offered this businessman a deal. He said to the businessman that he would place black and a white stone in a bag, and if the daughter would reach into the bag and pull out one of those stones, and if she selected the white stone, the banker would forgive the debt, and the daughter would not be obligated to marry him. But if she selected the black, the debt would also be forgiven, but she'd have to marry him. So when the banker bent over, pick up two stones among all those on the ground, the young lady noticed that he secretly picked up two black stones and placed into the bag. So now, the young lady has a real dilemma. Does she refuse to participate? Does she pull both black stones out and expose the banker for a fraud? Or does she just select one and marry the banker to help out her dad? What would you do? So I want to pause my story here just for a minute to make a comparison, if you'd allow me. You see, just like that businessman, we as the Tennessee Farm Bureau owe a great debt to 679,000 members who trust us, who pay memberships, insurance premiums for home, auto, life, and health, many of whom have been loyal to us for many, many years. We owe them security and service when they suffer tornadoes like those that ravaged our state earlier this year, or to have security of health insurance during a pandemic, or the dollars that maybe a life insurance policy provides after an untimely death, and the assurance to the agriculture community that we have policy in place and boots on the ground to protect and promote the interests of our great industry. We must, I believe, always take those commitments seriously, even during times when we're reaching into a bag of unknowns. Nearly every time we've reached into that proverbial bag this year, seems like it's contained 2 black stones. So back to the story. What did the young lady do? She carefully reached into the bag, grabbed a stone. As she pulled it out, she accidentally dropped it on the ground amongst all the other stones and said, "Oops, being as I didn't see what color that is, let me reach into the bag and pull the other one out so we can see what color that first stone was." So, did any of you think of that as an option? I'll admit to you I didn't. And sometimes in life, we explore all the options and think there are none left, but we can find ways to improvise to get desired results. Do any of you recall what our theme for this convention was last year? Well, it was leading the way. And our theme this year, 2020 Vision. I hope somewhere down the line that history will show that the Tennessee Farm Bureau has led the way during 2020. Perhaps more significantly than we may realize at this moment, even as we're reaching into that bag with limited vision and what seems to be no good option at times. Much of that credit goes to the leadership of Radonna Rose, Jeff Panel, Anthony Kimbrough, and their team. They have a dedicated staff, and they've found creative ways to ensure that our members and customers continue receiving the quality service that they expect from Farm Bureau. When you have 679,000 members, 95 county boards, 196 offices across the state, and hundreds of staff, it's virtually impossible to make decisions that satisfy everyone. To those that have offered encouragement and support, I want to personally say thank you and publicly thank you. To those who have perhaps been disappointed with some of the decisions that we've made during 2020, I offer my sincere apologies. But I do promise you that your voices have been heard, and all the decisions that we've made this year have been greatly deliberated and considered. Hindsight may prove some of these decisions wrong, but they were made with best intentions in mind for our organization. So during my 5 years in this role, I will fess up to you that I have heard so many acronyms that I can't keep up with hardly any of them. We live in a world of acronyms, and I'm not a huge fan of them. But I would tell you that 2020 may take the record for acronyms. We've had the CARES Act, we've had PPP, EIDL, CFAP 1, CFAP 2, and the HEROES Act. If you'd allow me to make a little play on the PPP acronym, and I think all of you will recall that it actually stood for Paycheck Protection Program. But if you'll allow me to make a little play on it, I would contend that in 2020, it could have just as easily have stood for pandemic, protest, and politics. You know, as frustrating as COVID has been, it's still created some situations that we in agriculture need to capitalize on. We have long expressed our desire and the need for broadband access to the rural communities across our state. And this pandemic has highlighted that discrepancy that exists. And I'm hopeful that we can continue making progress. I'm excited that member benefits under the leadership of Brian Wright has created a partnership with Vogue Towers that will offer our members an opportunity to offer property for consideration for cell towers across this state. Hopefully, that will allow us to improve cell phone service in some needed areas and also potentially benefit our members and landowners. As farmers and as an organization, we've long had concerns about our lack of agriculture processing facilities in this state, such as livestock processing and grain storage. You know, empty shelves at the grocery store will often highlight for the non-farming public just how serious and how considerate they should be of their food supply. I hope that because of that awareness of empty grocery store shelves that we can begin making some progress on addressing those challenges of processing facilities and grain storage. You know, I would contend that our country, in my view, might be as divided as it's ever been. You know, we have Democrats and Republicans, conservatives, liberals, rural versus urban, racial divisions, religious differences, and the list, you know, can go on and on. I fear that maybe we've forgotten one key phrase of that pledge that we just recited at the beginning of our meeting. One nation under God, indivisible. You know, to this body, I would say, I think it's sometimes important that we remind ourselves we are a nonpartisan organization. If you look around this room today, we obviously have Democrats and Republicans, men and women, many different church affiliations, urban and rural, yet we all come together as one. And we have the opportunity to share our thoughts and our opinions and our beliefs on issues that are important to us. And we're going to, hopefully at the end of this session, put them in our resolutions and advocate for them throughout the year. And I think they're supported by all of us as we move forward, irregardless of which party is in power. I think during the last 4 years, we had a wonderful relationship with Secretary Sonny Perdue, EPA Administrator Andrew Wheeler, and others within the administration. But I commit to you that we'll work just as hard to try to promote and protect agriculture and build relationships with new leaders without sacrificing things that we believe in. I really believe American Farm Bureau President Zippy Duval probably stated it best. If we're not at the table for deliberations, we'll be on the table. And, you know, undoubtedly, we're going to have some different issues to address under a new administration, such as carbon emissions and credits, The Resolutions Committee and their work in November, actually, they're going to offer some proposed language for your consideration, and I would encourage this body to take a close look, a serious look, and make sure that you're comfortable with that language to guide this organization as we move forward. So if I could make another play on PPP, I would say that it could stand for purpose, passion, and perseverance. I think that's how it relates to farmers and our members across this state and nation. You know, according to a recent study, again, probably brought about by the pandemic, agriculture and farmers are at the top of the list of respected industries in the United States. And I think that's a great tribute. We've known it for a long time, but to have the rest of the country recognize that is quite significant. Shortly after we had some of those tornadoes back in March, Kaz Suzuki II, I love that name. Kaz works in corporate communications with the insurance company at the home office, and she shared a picture that was taken by Phil Irwin on social media, and Kaz pinned a quote to that picture, that sometimes it takes a dark time to make you appreciate all that's around you. I just ask you to let that sink in for a minute after all that we've dealt with in 2020. And I don't think Kaz or anybody else knew that in December how relevant that statement could be. I can tell you that I appreciate each and every one of you. I appreciate our staff. We're blessed with a wonderful staff at the Tennessee Farm Bureau. I appreciate our organization and what we stand for. And I appreciate the fact that even with masks and other precautions, we're gathered here as friends, as Farm Bureau leaders, and as an industry to conduct our business. Our oldest service company, Tennessee Livestock Producer, obviously has persevered for many years through a changing livestock environment and structure. I would say they deserve immense credit for their creativity in building one of the first and one of the most successful video sales in the entire state of Tennessee, and also for the vision of the Alliance program, allowing similar animals from different farms to be commingled and sold in load lots. But the difficult decision was made in October to lease TLP to United Producers. We believe this agreement with United is in the best interest of all involved. Our first priority was to provide a viable option today as well as into the future for our livestock producers in this state, as well as an opportunity for our TLP staff to transition if they so chose. I want to publicly thank all of the staff at Tennessee Livestock Producers for their years of service and commitment to our organization and to the livestock producers across this state. But I've got to give a special note of thanks to Richard Brown for his leadership during the last year and especially through this transition. Richard, are you in the room? Well, we certainly appreciate Richard. He has been a true gentleman and a lot of hard work in that process. So the former Wilson County Expo Center, I'm excited over this one, is now known as the Farm Bureau Expo Center. You can see a picture on the screen. While creating our strategic plan 2 years ago, one of the recommendations that come from our leadership and membership across the state was that we do a better job of promoting the agriculture component of our organization. I'm proud to say that you'll find our slogan, the voice of agriculture, prominently displayed on the front of the Expo Center. But we're also a Farm Bureau family, and we all stand together, so you'll also find the logo of Farm Bureau Insurance and Farm Bureau Health Plans displayed as well. I hope many of you know where the Expo Center is, but it's located centrally to our state, right off of Interstate 40, and is one of the premier venues in the state and used by many. We actually anticipate using it for future events, perhaps Farm Bureau events, and hope you'll get a chance to see that. Second item in our strategic plan that we focused on is developing, implementing, and promoting a process for building and recognizing leaders of distinction. Many of you, along with assistance from our field staff and Stacy Warner, helped make that happen with the County Farm Bureau President's banners created to display in your County Farm Bureau offices. Everyone who enters an office will be reminded that we're a farm organization and learn more about their county president. While we provided that first banner, we hope that you as a county will continue to change those banners to showcase agriculture, individuals, and our organization. Now we're losing a lot of purpose, power, and perseverance with the retirements of Tim Dodd, Brennis Craddock, John Law, and Leanne Tice. These four have a combined 122 years of service to Farm Bureau. Obviously, we'll miss their experience and guidance, but just as significant, their positive attitudes and commitment to Farm Bureau. We wish each of them well in their well-earned retirement. I would say communication is always important, but maybe never more important than it has been during 2020. And I trust that each of you are just as proud of our communications team as I am. You know, they have worked tirelessly to keep us, the agriculture community, informed during this pandemic. But they've also done an outstanding job of telling the story of agriculture to that non-farming public. I've been absolutely thrilled to have the opportunity to write the Ag Up Front article during the past year for Home and Farm magazine, but I'm going to admit to you, it's a challenge trying to write something that non-farmers will take time to read and still get a message from. And full disclosure, my writing is very much polished and perfected by Lee and Amy. Appreciate all they do to make it readable. You know, that non-farm audience is the reason 30 years ago that we built the Ag in the Classroom program. And it remains just as critical today as ever before. I want to thank, once again, all the county boards and women's committees that contributed to the 30 for 30 challenge this year, and for your continued support of such an important ag education program. You know, we admit we face many uncertainties, but I just ask you to take a look at our young farmers and ranchers. They've been here, had their program yesterday, but many are in here. Matter of fact, how many are serving first time as a delegate at this convention? Can we get a show of hands? Raise them high, folks. So that's, to me, that's a great tribute to our young farmers. It means our program is growing, and it means our organization is growing. So thanks to each of you that are serving for that first time. Under the leadership of Tracy Robinson and the state committee, they have continued to excel and offer promise for a bright future for our industry. Tracy, if you're in here, I appreciate your leadership, your friendship, the values that you possess, and your love for agriculture and Farm Bureau. It's truly been an honor having you represent the young farmers on our board of directors. There's no way to think of purpose and passion in Farm Bureau without our women coming to mind. I'm thankful for everything that Brenda Baker and the state Women's Committee do for this organization and for every county women's committee across our state. Obviously, we are a policy organization, and for a policy organization, the work that we did in Nashville this year was somewhat challenged. You know, they shut the legislature down, they closed it to the public, they took a recess, they came back to finish the business, and then they came back and held a special session to address primarily two issues. The state budget obviously become the primary focus and will most likely continue, I think, into this next session. We've enjoyed great legislative success through the years, and we have a great team in Stephen Maupin, Kevin Hensley, and Ben Sanders with the insurance group, along with a new face, Laura Lee Harris. Laura Lee's over in the corner. We're glad to have her on board. But I got to tell you, as good as they are, if the legislature limits access again this year, the importance of what we as volunteer leaders do could not be any more important to build those relationships and share those communications with our individual elected officials back at home. I hope that you enjoyed the governor's comments last night. To put a little burden on you as you begin this business session, when the governor of our state comes and talks about our resolutions book, I think that's a great testament to what we as an organization do. I think it's a great testament to the respect that the governor has for us, and so I hope we'll continue to put the thought and time and effort into providing good direction for our team in Nashville and Washington, D.C., but do our part as well. You know, it's very, very much obvious that the governor has a great deal of respect for the men and women of this organization. Mike Brundage and Matt Fennell represented Tennessee earlier this year on an American Farm Bureau NASS study committee. That committee worked to enhance reporting and trust in the data that NASS provides. We all understand the importance of that data and the impact that it can have on the markets and the need for it to be as accurate as possible. I appreciate Mike and Matt for their willingness to serve on this committee and represent the thoughts of fellow Tennesseans. So I began by saying I didn't want to offend anybody by being overly positive during such a trying time, and I stand by that. But in all honesty, we have so much as an organization and as individuals to be thankful for that I don't think we can help but be a little positive. We have committed, dedicated leaders and staff that have served our members during the pandemic. We have grown this year, membership-wise, maybe more modestly than what we generally expect, but nonetheless, we've grown. And I would say most importantly, even during the pandemic, God is still in control. You know, Romans 8:31 says that, what shall we then say to these things? If God be for us, who can be against us? As we enter the Christmas season, I encourage you to reflect on all the fear, uncertainty, and challenges that no doubt Mary and Joseph probably dealt with and endured leading up to the birth of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. We're a blessed organization and a blessed group of individuals. Let's spread faith, hope, and love during a challenging time. I believe it'll serve us well. Thank you, and God bless you.